So it's finally been revealed who is Jordynne Grace's tag team partner in the ongoing Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Championship Tournament. It's been revealed that it is none other than wrestling icon, former NWA World Women's Champion and former WWE Women's Champion Jazz is coming out of retirement to be Jordynne Grace's tag team partner, challenging for the Knockouts Tag Team Championship in Impact Wrestling. Now, this was revealed this past week on Impact on Access TV. It was announced that Jordynne Grace would be teaming up with former WWE Women's Champion Jazz in the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament to crown the new Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Of course, the Knockouts Tag Team Championships are returning for the first time since they were made defunct, removed from the promotion back in 2012-2013. The tournament has been ongoing. There's been rumours swirling ever since we knew that Jordynne Grace was going to have this mystery tag team partner. We even did a video about it here on the channel, speculating about who one of the partners could be. One of the names we did point out at the time, I will take some credit. One of the names I did mention at the time was Jazz. It wasn't the name that was being talked about at the time, but I did think, when I heard retirement, when I heard possible tag team partner, I did think maybe Jazz was a possibility. But I'll be totally honest, I'll hold my hands up. I said in the video I didn't think it was going to be her. The reason why I said I didn't think it was going to be her was because she was already retired. She announced her retirement last month on social media on the Chris Van Vliet show in an interview appearance, and I didn't think it was going to be her at the time. I was proved wrong. I'm still kind of glad that I thought she was a possibility. I did say she was a possibility, but I didn't think it was going to be her. But didn't get it 100% right. I will hold my hands up to that. But it was great to see Jazz this past week on Impact on Access TV. Now, before I get into the details of it, what does this mean for Jazz's future in Impact? What does this mean for the Tag Team Championship Tournament? I do want to address what's going on with Taylor Wilde, because obviously I made a video about Taylor Wilde on Tuesday before Impact went on the air on Access TV, and the reports were saying online, Taylor Wilde, she's making her return to Impact Wrestling. At the time I speculated this means that Taylor Wilde is going to be Jordynne Grace's tag team partner, or I said that I thought that was the case. As far as I'm aware, Taylor Wilde is still returning to Impact Wrestling. All of the major websites, all of the major reporters are still reporting it. There's been no retractions or anyone saying, oh, maybe that's not the case. PW Insider, Fightful, Wrestling Inc., Sportskeeda, everyone has run with that story that Taylor Wilde is returning to Impact Wrestling. So as far as I'm aware, I think that is still happening. What you do have to realize is the most recent tapings for Impact Wrestling, they taped from last night's episode all the way to the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, or the go-home episode for the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. They've taped literally all of the episodes of Impact Wrestling for this year. They have taped a ton of content, a ton of footage. So just because Taylor Wilde didn't appear last night or like this week on Impact Wrestling on Access TV doesn't mean that she's not coming back. I think she is returning. We know that there are people departing Impact Wrestling at the moment. We know the situation when it comes to people's contracts expiring, etc. So I still am very, very confident Taylor Wilde will return to Impact Wrestling. I believe all of the reports. It's just the case that Taylor Wilde isn't the tag team partner of Jordynne Grace going forward, but there is still plenty of time for Taylor Wilde to return to Impact Wrestling over the next couple of weeks. But what's interesting when it comes to Jazz, and this is the reason I was kind of thrown off about Jazz becoming Jordynne Grace's tag team partner in this tournament, the reason I was kind of thrown off is because, like I said, Jazz had already announced her retirement when it came to pro wrestling. She announced her retirement back in October on the Chris Van Vliet show. But I think what kind of maybe makes the most sense now is Jazz had planned to do a retirement tour. She had planned to do a tour of matches and do a load of different dates, venues, favourite opponents, past opponents, new opponents. She had planned to do all of that. But obviously due to 2020 and due to the pandemic, like everything else, that was scrapped and that was cancelled, and Jazz had just decided ultimately I can't do the retirement tour because of the restrictions that are in place, therefore I'll just call it a day and I'll retire there. She wasn't able to do this retirement tour due to the pandemic. Now, as I mentioned last month, Jazz did announce her retirement during an interview with Chris Van Vliet on YouTube. She said, quote, "Honestly, I just had my last match this past Sunday. I am done in the ring. I was going to do a whole tour in 2020, but with the pandemic happening, that screwed everything up. I've been having issues with my knees and my back and a lot more issues physically, mentally and emotionally. That's why I had to forfeit the NWA title. I have 2 beautiful daughters and I have to focus on them right now," end quote. So because of that, because of the injuries that she mentioned, because of the emotional and mental problems as well, and because she was focusing on her family, I just kind of felt that she'd put pro wrestling in the rearview mirror. As I mentioned, she wanted to do the retirement tour, but unfortunately it wasn't possible, like a variety of things this year, and that's why I felt it was more likely to be a Taylor Wilde. On top of that, we had heard all of these reports that Taylor Wilde was returning. Nobody saw Jazz coming. Nobody saw the announcement of Jazz returning to pro wrestling, coming to Impact Wrestling for the first time in her career. Nobody saw that coming. If anything, to pat myself on the back a little bit more, I think I was probably we were one of the only channels that even said that it could be a possibility, even though I said I didn't think it was going to happen. I don't think many other people had Jazz on their shortlist. So it really was something that was kind of out of left field, people didn't see coming. Nevertheless, I'm very excited for it. Even Jazz at this advanced stage in her career where she's really in the twilight and it's retirement's there, it's going to happen, she still can go. If you've seen any of Jazz's matches over the last few years when she was the NWA World Women's Champion, you can see that she can still go. She can. It's the same with the likes of Ken Shamrock. I've been very high with my praise, and I think a lot of people have when it comes to Impact, the way they've used Ken Shamrock on Impact Wrestling TV, because they know how to show someone's positives and they know how to hide any weaknesses that they have, and I'm sure they'll do exactly the same when it comes to Jazz and Impact. This isn't a singles run. This isn't Jazz coming in and being every single knockout in the division. This is Jazz in a tag team match with a dominant superstar wrestler like Jordynne Grace, someone that can do most of the heavy lifting, quite literally, when it comes to the ring. But when she can do a hot tag to Jazz, Jazz can be physical, Jazz can still take some bumps, she obviously has a ton of ring psychology, she has a ton of experience and expertise, she can get through a few matches and they can be entertaining. There's a story to tell there when it comes to the retirement of Jazz and this kind of put together tag team of power and a real modern high-class wrestler like Jordynne Grace and an experienced veteran like Jazz. There's a story there to be told, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. Now, there's no doubt in my mind, this isn't Jazz coming in and signing a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal with Impact Wrestling. Her deal, to me, is a very short-term deal. I think probably she signed the deal to do the appearances at this last batch of Impact TV tapings, which, as I mentioned, go all the way to the Go Home episode of Impact, and probably she signed a deal to do an appearance at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. So realistically, you're almost looking at, that TV taping was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, possibly the Hard to Kill pay-per-view. So I'm thinking you're looking at like 7 dates, maybe, in this short-term deal, and I think that would be it. So I'm interested in it. I'm very interested in it. And obviously, if they get through this first round match, they have a potential clash with Havoc and Nevaeh coming forward. And that, to me, is very interesting. But you can't obviously look past the opponents that they have already. And Jazz and Jordynne Grace's opponents in this first round is a set of former WWE wrestlers in Killer Kelly and Renee Michelle. Now, of course, Kelly was quietly released from the WWE in January, having mostly worked on the NXT UK brand, where, of course, Renee Michelle, probably most famously, is married to NXT wrestler superstar Drake Maverick. And she actually was briefly on Monday Night Raw for a period of time when Drake Maverick was heavily involved in the 24/7 championship scene. Of course, they even did the Drake Maverick Renee Michelle wedding with the 24/7 championship angle there, which was legitimately Drake Maverick's and Renee Michelle's wedding. They decided to do an angle there. I mean, talk about dedication to the craft there. It's absolutely incredible. So I think Jazz and I think Jazz and Jordynne Grace will win next week when it comes to the first round match. And I think they're going to get all the way, but I'll touch on where I think this is going. Now, as I mentioned, Jazz previously, she'd announced her retirement due to health and personal issues in October. And I know a lot of people might not be aware of what she was doing when it comes to her career prior to announcing this retirement. A lot of people obviously know her from WWE and the ECW, but her most recent sort of run when it came to pro wrestling came in the National Wrestling Alliance, and she was doing real big things. She really was. She held the NWA Women's Championship from September of 2016 to April of 2019. Yes, she nearly held that championship for 3 full years. She also made a cameo for All Elite Wrestling at the company's All Out pay-per-view in 2019. She was in the Casino Battle Royale, but most surprisingly, and I think this is also a massive factor as to why this whole situation and decision has come for Jazz to team up with Jordynne Grace in Impact, is because she's never wrestled for Impact. I made this point in the Jordynne Grace tag team partner video that I did, is that Jazz has never competed inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. And you look at the promotion she's competed for now. She's competed for WWE, ECW, AEW. Impact's kind of the promotion that's kind of left off that list, and she mentioned it this past week on Impact Wrestling. What better way to end her career than to possibly win the Knockouts Tag Team Championships and have a run in Impact Wrestling? And I totally agree with that. And the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament, it's already underway. We've seen it the last few weeks on Impact on Access TV. We've already seen Havoc and Nevaeh defeat Alicia Edwards and Tennille Dashwood. We've seen Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan defeat Ashley Vox and Del Mioko this past week, the Sea Stars, and I enjoyed that match. But it's going to be very, very interesting, no doubt, to see where Impact is going with these tournaments. A lot of the time, tournament wrestling in professional wrestling, very quickly you can kind of tell where the story is going here. And I think Jazz being revealed as Jordynne Grace's tag team partner, huge legend in the industry, former women's champion. She even named her, she's a former women's champion and NWA women's champion. This is a big story in this Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament, and I think this is kind of going to be arguably the biggest story in it, and the story that this whole tournament is going to be centered around. A lot of people now are speculating Jazz and Jordynne Grace the team to beat. Obviously, like I said, they have the power advantage when it comes to Jordynne Grace, the experience advantage when it comes to Jazz. They're going to probably play up the story about maybe a lack of chemistry, but they're certainly going to do a teacher and student kind of deal here. And it's going to be very interesting. Personally, I think they'll beat Renee Michelle and Killer Kelly next week. I hope the latter, Killer Kelly and Renee Michelle, do get signed. I think Impact does need more wrestlers. I'm going to do another video later today. There's a huge update about the contracts that are expiring when it comes to Impact Wrestling. There are certainly a few, so be sure to check out the channel for that latest Impact video later today. I am going to be talking about the contracts expiring, namely one Ethan Page. We've got a bit of an update for that I'm going to talk about later today. But it's been talked about quite a lot on social media. Jazz's return to the squared circle and being revealed as Jordynne Grace's tag team partner got a bit of buzz, which shows how, Jazz is still a name in pro wrestling, still can attract attention when it comes to social media. As soon as it was the announcement was made on social media, Jordynne Grace posted out a tweet saying, "Guess I can post this now," and there's a selfie of her with Jazz inside of an Impact Wrestling ring in Nashville, Tennessee at Skyway Studios. Jazz replied as well to this, saying, "Yes, surprise. Thanks again for the call. How could I have said no to you? Love you. Now let's do this." She's obviously ready to get down to business and challenge for those Knockouts Tag Team Championships. We'll have to see how long a return to the ring when it comes to Jazz this is. As I mentioned, I think personally she was probably contracted to this last batch of TV tapings and the Hard to Kill pay-per-view. We'll have to wait and see. As I mentioned, when it comes to Taylor Wilde, do I think Taylor Wilde's going to be involved in this tournament now? Obviously not, because all of the slots are taken. Taylor Wilde, I think, is returning though. There's been no reports to say otherwise. Taylor Wilde is returning. I don't think it's another case of Impact Wrestling misinformation or anything of that nature. So I do think Taylor Wilde is still returning to Impact Wrestling. Do I think Jordynne Grace and Jazz will win the Knockouts Tag Team Championships? You know what? I don't. I just don't. And the reason I say I don't think they will win it is because realistically, what happens if they do win? I think Jazz and Jordynne Grace will get to the final. I do think they'll get to the final. But if they get to the final and they win the Knockouts Tag Team Championships, is Jazz going to stay around? Obviously not. She's retiring. She was retired. She came out of retirement for this tournament to do these few select dates for Impact Wrestling. So even if they won the Tag Team Championships, Jazz has no interest in continuing past this. So if they won the Tag Team Championship, suddenly you've got a vacant championship. That doesn't make any sense to have the championships return after being removed several years ago, and then your first champion immediately retires. It doesn't make any sense in the world. So I don't think Jordynne Grace and Jazz will win it. I do think they'll get to the final. I think they'll probably face, this is the tough one, I think they'll probably face Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary. I'll touch on that in a second though, because I think that's a very tough call to make. As far as Jazz's future when it comes to Impact, like I said, I think she's contracted to the last set of tapings, Hard to Kill. I don't see her having a long run in Impact. I don't see her going into a singles run or anything like that. She mentioned the reason she retired, she's got issues with her knees, with her back. emotionally, physically, mentally. She's looking after her children as well. It's only a tag team role. You don't have to necessarily do all the heavy lifting. Any pro wrestler will tell you that, if you always see it all the time, someone's got an injury or someone's banged up, they go straight into tag matches. Whenever you see a world champion, you see it all the time with the world champions on the house show loop. If they had an injury, suddenly those singles matches get turned into tag team matches, and you can spend a lot of the time on the apron. So I think that'll probably be a similar sort of situation when it comes to Jazz here. I don't see her going into a singles run or anything like that with Impact in the future. As I mentioned, I think they'll win next week. I think they'll then defeat Havoc and Nevaeh in the second round. The episodes, as I mentioned, up to Hard to Kill have been taped for Impact Wrestling, Saturday to Thursday taping. So Jazz, realistically, even though on television, she'll when it comes to Hard to Kill, she'd have been on TV for like, how many weeks? 6-7 weeks or something by that point. She would have only worked a couple of dates for Impact. So she's only looking at a few dates, hence the deal is very, very short term, hence why she came in. Personally though, if I had to put my neck out on the line, I do think we're going to get a final of Jordynne Grace and Jazz versus Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary to crown the new Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Now, Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary are a fascinating team purely because obviously we know the situation when it comes to Taya Valkyrie right now. Her contract is expiring. It expires at the end of the year. So you would say, why would they put Taya Valkyrie in that role when by the time Hard to Kill comes around, her contract may have expired? And it's a very good point. It's an incredibly valid point. Put it this way, however Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary end up in this tournament will be a huge indicator as to the contract status of Taya Valkyrie. So I don't know the situation when it comes to her. She could have already done her last dates of Impact. She absolutely could have. And they're facing Deonna Purrazzo and Kimber Lee in the first round of this Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament. And I think that's the real indicator. I think Jazz and Grace will face the winner of Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary versus Deonna Purrazzo and Kimber Lee. That will be the final match in my opinion. And whoever wins that match between Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary against Deonna Purrazzo and Kimber Lee, that will give a massive indicator as to the future of Taya Valkyrie as well. So Taya Valkyrie's future is certainly up in the air. If we do get a final match of Valkyrie and Rosemary versus Jazz and Grace, then it looks like Taya Valkyrie is staying. So it'll be very interesting, but as I mentioned, I don't think Jordynne Grace and Jazz will win it because Jazz is legitimately retiring, and it just doesn't make any sense for me. Obviously they could do the situation of they win it and then Jazz goes, right, that was me, that's all I wanted to achieve. I wanted to go out with a championship and that's what I've done, I'm retiring. And then she sort of drops the championship and leaves. But that doesn't make any sense for me to bring championships back for it to be immediately vacated. That just seems very odd to me. It's not to say it won't happen, anything can happen, but I just don't see it. Because if they win it, one half of it is vacant again, it seems very odd. I just think Grace and Jazz, they get to the final, have a fantastic match, 10, 15, I don't know, actually 15, 20 minute match, I would think, deserves it if you're going to crown new champions. It's a final swan song of Jazz. You have to remember as well, Jazz wanted to have this final swan song. She wanted to have this retirement tour and she didn't get it. This can almost be her retirement tour in one place. The retirement tour, instead of taking place across the country, possibly the globe and all of these independent dates, instead the retirement tour takes place in this tournament. It takes place in the first round, the second round, and the final. That can be her retirement tour, and ultimately what happens at the end of a retirement tour, most of the time you lose. You put over the younger and newer talent, and I think that's exactly what it is. So if I was Impact, if I was Don Callis, if I was Scott D'Amore, or the people on the creative team or people that come up with the storylines for Impact Wrestling, if I was Impact, I would have Jordynne Grace and Jazz get to the finals, come this close, just this close to winning the tag team championships, have Deonna Purrazzo and Kimber Lee or whoever win the tag team championships. After the match, we know that Jazz is announcing her retirement, maybe even before the match. She goes, regardless of the outcome tonight, I've had an amazing swan song, but I'm going into retirement, but this time I'm going into retirement as a champion. They lose the match. After the match, they hug in the ring. Jordynne Grace and Jazz hug in the ring. It's been a teacher and student kind of situation. Jazz is tearing up because it is legitimately her retirement. Then Jordynne Grace turns heel and just bang, absolutely destroys Jazz. Jazz practically power bombs her through the ring, attacks her violently. You've got this big heel female superstar then on your hands with Jordynne Grace. That would be money. That is money. To me, that smells like money. Whether or not they would do that, I don't know. But it's interesting. It's certainly interesting, and I'm very excited to see Jazz in an Impact Wrestling ring for the first time in her career, so it's going to be very, very exciting nevertheless. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Jazz being revealed as Jordynne Grace's tag team partner in the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Championship Tournament? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys and chatting about Impact Wrestling here on the channel. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube, got the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.